In the bustling nightlife of Charlotte, North Carolina, people come and go, mingling under neon lights and filling the city with life. But in November 2007, the city's nightlife would become the last known setting of a haunting mystery. This is the story of Kyle Fleischman, a young man who disappeared without a trace, leaving his family and the city of Charlotte grasping at rumors and shadows for answers. Kyle Fleischman was 24 years old, a graduate of Elon University and known for his warm, magnetic personality. He was the kind of person who could make friends anywhere, a guy who loved sports, his family, and nights out with friends. On the night of November 8, 2007, Kyle and a group of friends decided to hit the town. They went to a comedy show at the Belk Theater in downtown Charlotte. It was just another Thursday night, one like any other, until it wasn't. After the show, Kyle and his friends headed to a bar called Buckhead Saloon. They were having a good time, but around 1 a.m., Kyle got separated from his friends. No one's sure how it happened, but after a few drinks, his friends decided to call it a night, assuming Kyle had done the same. But as it turns out, Kyle stayed behind at the bar, alone. Hours later, around 2:20 a.m., Kyle left the bar, and this is where things begin to get strange. Surveillance cameras captured him walking out of Buckhead Saloon, but what happened after that is a mystery that has yet to be solved. He walked down North College Street, and then he was gone. The next day, Kyle's family realized something was wrong. His car was still parked in the lot, untouched. His bank accounts hadn't been used, his cell phone remained silent, and Kyle, someone who had never disappeared before, was simply gone. Charlotte police launched an investigation. They retraced Kyle's last known movements, but nothing made sense. There were no signs of foul play, no footage of him after he left the bar, and no evidence to suggest where he might have gone. The lack of answers left everyone involved frustrated and heartbroken. Kyle was close with his family, said Detective Julie Gibson from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. It's hard to believe he would just walk away without a trace. We followed every lead, but it's like he vanished into thin air. It's unsettling. Over the years, the mystery only deepened. Some people believed that Kyle might have gotten into a fight or encountered someone who meant him harm. Others speculated that he could have wandered into an unsafe part of town and met with an accident or foul play, but the details, they just don't add up. Kyle's father, Dick Fleischman, became an outspoken advocate for finding his son. He appeared on television, organized search parties, and worked tirelessly to keep Kyle's memory alive. "I just want to know what happened," Dick said in a local interview. "Someone out there knows something. I can't give up on my son. He wouldn't give up on me." The family set up a website, distributed thousands of missing person posters, and even offered a reward for information leading to Kyle's whereabouts. But still, no one came forward with answers. Local social media groups took up the case, with users debating theories, piecing together timelines, and speculating about what could have happened to Kyle. One user commented, "It's like he walked into the city and just disappeared. How does that happen?" Then, rumors began to surface. Some people claimed to have seen a man matching Kyle's description wandering near the North Davidson Street area, known as Noda, a trendy neighborhood known for its art scene. But police could never confirm these sightings. Others speculated that he may have fallen victim to a mugging gone wrong, while a few online theorists even suggested he had left to start a new life. But none of these theories held up under scrutiny. The most chilling theory, though, involves the dark corners of Charlotte's underworld. According to whispers around town, Kyle may have encountered the wrong people that night. Some suggest he was lured into a dangerous situation, possibly involving gang activity, and that his disappearance was part of a cover-up. But without any concrete evidence, these remain just rumors. Detective Gibson shared her frustration in a 2019 interview, saying, "This case is one that keeps you up at night. We don't have the answers, and the family doesn't have closure. Someone out there knows what happened, but for now, it's a secret that's buried." To this day, Kyle's family hasn't stopped searching. They hold vigils, share his story, and continue to hope that someone will come forward with the truth. His mother, Barbara Fleischman, posted on social media, "It's been years, but every day feels like that first day. We need answers. We need to bring Kyle home. But with each year that passes, the hope fades a little more. Kyle Fleischman's disappearance remains one of Charlotte's most unsettling mysteries, a reminder that even in a city full of people, someone can vanish without a trace. The question lingers in the minds of everyone who remembers him. Where is Kyle Fleischman? Bardstown, Kentucky, a small town nestled in the heart of bourbon country, known for its historic charm and friendly residents. But over the last decade, something darker has lurked beneath Bardstown's idyllic exterior. Since 2013, this town has been haunted by a series of brutal, unsolved murders and disappearances that have left the community searching for answers. No arrests, no concrete leads, just a lingering fear that someone or something is out there, hiding in plain sight. Our story begins with one of the most tragic and chilling cases to come out of this quiet town, the murder of Officer Jason Ellis. On the night of May 25, 2013, Jason Ellis, a beloved Bardstown police officer, was driving home after his shift. He was only 7 miles away from his family, from his wife and young children. But he would never make it home. Jason took the exit off the Bluegrass Parkway, and that's where he encountered something strange. There were branches, large tree limbs, blocking the road, a setup no driver could ignore. As an officer, it was instinctual for Jason to investigate. He pulled over, got out of his car, and approached the debris. But as he stepped out, someone was watching. In the darkness of that night, a hidden shooter lay in wait. Shots were fired, and Jason Ellis was gunned down in cold blood. The ambush was brutal, calculated, and left the entire community shaken. Jason's murder was not random, said Bardstown Police Chief Rick McCubbin in a public statement shortly after the murder. This was premeditated, an ambush. Someone planned this, someone knew his routine. Despite an exhaustive investigation, interviewing hundreds of people and searching for any possible lead, no arrests were made. Rumors circulated. Was it a personal vendetta? A message? To this day, there's no answer, no known motive, no suspects. Bardstown had its first mystery, but it was far from over. Two years later, in 2015, another tragedy struck. On April 19th, just before midnight, Kathy and Samantha Netherland were found murdered in their own home. Kathy, a teacher, was beloved in the community, and her daughter Samantha, only 16 years old, was a bright young high school student. The scene police found inside their house was so gruesome that investigators couldn't believe what they were seeing. Kathy and Samantha's deaths were violent. Brutal even, said Nelson County Sheriff Ed Mattingly. I can't share the details, but let's just say it's the kind of thing you don't forget. The investigation revealed that Kathy had suffered gunshot wounds, while Samantha had been bludgeoned. There was no sign of forced entry, no obvious motive, and the sheer brutality of the murders made the town even more fearful. Who could do this? And why? The police were tight-lipped about the investigation, but whispers in Bardstown spread like wildfire. Some people believed it was the same person who killed Jason Ellis, someone with a vendetta against the community. But again, the case went cold, and there were no leads. And if that wasn't enough to shake Bardstown, tragedy would strike again in July 2015. This time, it was a disappearance. A case that has become one of Kentucky's most infamous mysteries. On the morning of July 3rd, Crystal Rogers, a 35-year-old mother of 5, was reported missing by her family. Crystal was last seen at her boyfriend's farm. Her car was later found abandoned along the Bluegrass Parkway, the same road where Officer Ellis had been ambushed 2 years earlier. Her keys, purse, and cell phone were still inside the car, but there was no sign of Crystal. Her boyfriend, Brooks Houck, was the last person to see her. When questioned, Brooks claimed he had nothing to do with her disappearance, stating that he went to bed, and when he woke up, she was gone. But Crystal's family wasn't convinced. Her mother, Sherry Ballard, publicly accused Brooks of involvement, saying Crystal wouldn't just leave her kids. She wouldn't just walk away. The investigation took a darker turn when Brooks's brother, Nick Houck, a Bardstown police officer, was accused of interfering in the investigation. Nick was questioned by the FBI, and it was reported that he failed a polygraph test. Despite the suspicions, both Brooks and Nick denied any involvement in Crystal's disappearance. Brooks's words to reporters have haunted Bardstown ever since. "People can think what they want," he said, looking right into the camera, "but I have nothing to hide." Years passed, and the case grew colder with every passing month. Crystal's family has continued to hold vigils and search for answers, refusing to give up on finding her. Her mother, Sherry, has kept her memory alive, stating, "I'll keep fighting for her. I'll never stop until we know what happened to Crystal." Then, in 2016, another devastating blow hit the Ballard family. Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, who had been tirelessly searching for his daughter, was shot and killed while hunting on his own property. It was early morning and Tommy had gone out to check the land, something he did almost daily. His death was ruled suspicious, and to this day it remains unsolved. Sheriff Mattingly commented at the time, "I don't believe Tommy's death was accidental. He was getting close to answers, close to something, and someone wanted him silenced." And now, Bardstown is left with a string of unanswered questions. The community has been forever changed by these murders, each one leaving a scar on the town. Social media has exploded with theories, speculation, and even accusations. A local Facebook group dedicated to solving these mysteries has thousands of members, each person trying to piece together the puzzle that is Bardstown. One user posted, "This town isn't safe. Something evil is here. I don't know who's doing this, but they're watching all of us." Another wrote, "I used to let my kids ride their bikes around town. Not anymore. Not after Crystal. Not after Tommy. Whoever's behind this is still out there." As of today, none of these cases have been solved. The murders and disappearances hang over Bardstown like a shadow, a haunting reminder of the dark secrets that may never be revealed. Investigators have tried every angle, exhausted every lead, but the answers remain just out of reach. It's as if Bardstown itself has become a character in a mystery novel, where the truth is buried so deeply that no one knows if it will ever be uncovered. The town has been called the most haunted place in Kentucky by its own residents, not because of ghosts, but because of the fear that lingers in the air. People keep their doors locked. They look over their shoulders and they wonder, who's next? Will the truth about Bardstown's dark mysteries ever come to light? Or will this small Kentucky town continue to live in the shadow of unanswered questions and unsolved cases? All we know for certain is that someone out there knows what happened to Officer Jason Ellis, Kathy and Samantha Netherland, Crystal Rogers, and Tommy Ballard. And until the truth comes to light, the people of Bardstown will continue to live in fear of the secrets lurking in their own backyards. In the quiet town of Florence, Alabama, a chilling story has unfolded. One that has left investigators, locals, and internet sleuths grappling for answers. This story isn't just about a disappearance. It's about betrayal, secrets, and the disturbing possibility that the main suspect is someone nobody expected. This is the case of Daniel Whitaker, a well-known local businessman whose life ended under mysterious circumstances. And the woman many believe knows more than she's saying, Alice Whitaker, his own wife. It was the evening of March 18, 2017, when Daniel was last seen alive. He'd been at a local charity event, one of many he attended as a prominent figure in Florence's small but tight-knit business community. People remembered him that night as upbeat, talking about his plans to expand his company and even joking with friends. But by the next morning, Daniel Whitaker was dead. His body found at the bottom of a ravine just outside town, with injuries that raised more questions than answers. At first, authorities treated it as a tragic accident. According to Sheriff Michael Raines, Daniel's injuries were consistent with a fall. But as we dug deeper, there were details that didn't sit right. For one, the ravine where Daniel was found wasn't on his usual route home. His car was parked a mile away, keys still in the ignition, the driver's door wide open. It was as if he'd left in a hurry, or worse, been forced out. Alice, his wife of 10 years, reported him missing late that night, claiming he never came home after the event. In a calm, almost detached voice, she told police, "Daniel was often out late for business meetings. I thought nothing of it until he didn't answer my calls." But as police delved into the details, her story began to unravel. Within days, rumors about the couple's relationship started circulating. Friends described their marriage as strained, saying that Alice had become distant and unpredictable in the months leading up to Daniel's death. Some even said she had been overheard speaking to someone on the phone late at night, conversations she abruptly ended when anyone walked into the room. One close friend, Rebecca Hale, told a local reporter, Alice was hiding something. She seemed paranoid, like she was always looking over her shoulder. Investigators soon discovered that Alice had a sizable life insurance policy on Daniel, one she'd increased just 6 months before his death. This revelation turned the investigation on its head, as suspicions grew that Daniel's death might not have been an accident after all. Social media exploded with theories, with people taking to Twitter and Facebook speculating on Alice's motives and her potential involvement. One post read, "What kind of wife increases her husband's life insurance just before he dies? She's hiding something." The police questioned Alice multiple times, and each time her answers were vague. She claimed not to know why Daniel's car was found where it was, or why he would have been near the ravine. When asked about the life insurance policy, she simply replied, "It was a precaution. We both took out policies. It's what responsible couples do." But the community wasn't convinced. Local news outlets ran headlines like "Wife or Widow?" "The Mysterious Case of Alice Whitaker," fueling public curiosity. People in Florence began whispering about Alice, eyeing her with suspicion whenever she was seen in town. As weeks turned into months, detectives continued digging into Alice's background. They discovered that she'd been in contact with an old boyfriend, Ryan Keller, a man with a criminal record who'd recently moved to Florence. Cell phone records revealed late-night calls between Alice and Ryan in the days leading up to Daniel's death. When police questioned Ryan, he denied everything, saying, "Alice called me for advice. She said her marriage was falling apart, that's all." But Detective Linda Morse didn't buy it. "There's something about Alice's demeanor that doesn't add up. Most grieving widows don't call their exes for advice," she told the Florence Gazette. And still, Alice refused to provide any clear answers. Then, a shocking piece of evidence surfaced. A letter found in Alice's car, allegedly written by Daniel just days before he died. In the letter, he expressed fear for his life, stating, "I feel like I'm being watched, even in my own home. Alice has been acting strange. If anything happens to me, look into her." This letter became the centerpiece of the case, leading to public outcry and demands for justice. Alice claimed the letter was a forgery, insisting that someone was framing her. But when asked who would want to frame her, she had no answer. Her only statement to the press was brief and haunting. "People believe what they want to believe. I loved Daniel, and I had nothing to do with his death." As of today, Daniel Whitaker's death remains unsolved. No charges have been filed, and Alice Whitaker continues to live in Florence, maintaining her innocence despite the mounting public suspicion. Ryan Keller left town shortly after being questioned, adding another layer of mystery to an already dark tale. Tonight, we're going to uncover a story that is as disturbing as it is elusive. Imagine a family with deep roots in the town's history, people of wealth and influence who seem untouchable. But what if, behind the gates of their mansion, behind the respectable facade, there's a darkness that no one dares to speak of? This is the story of the Rowan family, and the chilling mystery of a young woman's disappearance. A mystery that has left a community terrified and suspicious. The Rowans are one of the oldest and most prominent families in Richfield, a small but affluent town that seems straight out of a postcard. The Rowan family has controlled much of the town's industry and property for generations. Known for their charitable contributions, their lavish parties, and their untouchable reputation, the Rowans were seen as Richfield's royalty. But, under the surface, rumors whispered of their coldness, their ruthless business dealings, and more recently, a tragedy that shook the town. It all started with Lily Rowan, a vibrant 22-year-old college student and the youngest daughter of Charles and Vivian Rowan. Lily was well-liked, with a bright future and a magnetic personality. Friends say she was kind, always looking to help others, and had dreams of moving away from Richfield to start a life on her own terms. But Lily never got that chance. On the night of October 17, 2018, Lily attended one of the Rowans' infamous family gatherings, an event held at their sprawling estate just outside of town. It was a large party, lavish, extravagant, and filled with influential guests. According to friends who were there, Lily seemed uncomfortable, distracted, as though something was weighing on her mind. By the end of the night, she had vanished. No one saw her leave, and she hasn't been seen or heard from since. The investigation was swift, as the Rowans demanded answers. But what the public didn't see was the growing tension between the family and the investigators. According to Detective Maria Sloan, who was initially assigned to Lily's case, it was clear from the start that the Rowans weren't telling us everything. There was a guardedness, a sense that they were more interested in managing appearances than finding the truth. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, no evidence of foul play was immediately found. Lily's car was still parked at the estate, her belongings were left untouched, and her cell phone went silent that very night. Friends and family were questioned, but everyone insisted they had no idea what could have happened to her. However, as days turned into weeks, whispers began to circulate in Richfield. People started talking about the strained relationship between Lily and her father, Charles Rowan. Charles was known to be controlling, especially when it came to his family's image. Some said he was grooming Lily to take over certain family responsibilities, but Lily had pushed back, wanting a life outside the Rowan shadow. A former friend of Lily's, who preferred to remain anonymous, shared with a local reporter. Lily wanted out. She was tired of being treated like a pawn in her family's games. She told me once that the Rowans always had secrets, things they'd kill to keep buried, she said. The local newspaper published the quote, sparking public interest and leading to increased pressure on the Rowan family. Social media erupted with hashtags like #FindLily and #RowanSecrets trending in Richfield and beyond. People wanted answers, but the Rowans remained quiet, issuing only a carefully worded statement through their lawyer. The Rowan family is devastated by Lily's disappearance and is fully cooperating with authorities to bring her home. But not everyone believed them. As more questions surfaced, Detective Sloan's investigation took a darker turn. She began looking into the Rowan estate's history, particularly into the family's longtime staff. Several former employees came forward with troubling accounts of the Rowans' private lives. One ex-employee shared anonymously, "Things happened in that house that no one would believe. Charles was obsessed with control. The way he talked about his children, it was like they were his possessions, not his family." This revelation cast a new light on Lily's relationship with her family. The theory emerged that perhaps Lily hadn't just disappeared. Maybe she had been silenced. Detective Sloan's requests for further questioning of the family were met with resistance, and soon after, she was taken off the case. Her replacement, Detective Paul Rankin, was less experienced and, according to some, far more influenced by the Rowans. And a close friend of Lily's, Rachel Miller, started speaking out on social media. She posted on Facebook, "Lily told me she was scared. She said there were things about her family she couldn't talk about, but that she'd never be free of them. I can't stay silent anymore. Someone needs to look into the Rowans." Rachel's post gained traction, and soon the town of Richfield became divided. Some sided with the Rowans, insisting they were victims of baseless rumors. Others, however, believed that the family's wealth and influence had corrupted the investigation, keeping crucial details hidden. The tension in town was palpable, and more people began demanding answers. Several online forums speculated about the dark Rowan secrets that Lily had hinted at. Some people believed she may have uncovered something within the family business, a scandal or a crime, that her father wanted to keep hidden. Theories ranged from fraud to even more sinister possibilities, though no concrete evidence surfaced. Then, almost a year after Lily's disappearance, a construction crew working near the Rowan estate made a grim discovery. In a wooded area, less than a mile from the property, human remains were found. Though the remains were badly decomposed, a forensic team was called in, and after weeks of analysis they confirmed the community's worst fear. It was Lily. The Rowans once again issued a statement expressing their sorrow, but many saw it as hollow, calculated. The Rowans are saddened by this tragic news, it read. They ask for privacy during this difficult time and remain hopeful that justice will be served. Detective Sloan, now off the force and working as a private investigator, gave an interview to Richfield Times. I knew there was more to Lily's case. Her disappearance, the Rowans' reactions, it all felt wrong. But every time I tried to dig deeper, there was a wall. Someone didn't want Lily's story told. The story of Lily's tragic end has left an indelible mark on Richfield. Her death remains unsolved, her family untouched by legal scrutiny, despite mounting public suspicion. On social media, the story of Lily Rowan became a cautionary tale, with people across the country asking, what are the Rowans hiding, and how far will they go to keep their secrets safe? To this day, no arrests have been made, and Richfield lives under the shadow of the Rowan estate. The townspeople continue to whisper, to wonder, and to remember the young woman who tried to escape her family's grasp, but ended up buried in the very soil she wanted to leave behind. In the misty, shadowed valleys of Mingo County, West Virginia, quiet towns carry stories. Whispers of what might have happened on lonely roads or in thick woods, each story becoming a mystery, a warning. And one of these stories, the story of Cynthia Hall, still echoes through Lenore, a place now haunted by an unsolved murder that remains a chilling enigma. Cynthia Hall was a 35-year-old woman known for her warmth and loyalty to those she loved. To her family and friends, she was a beacon of kindness and reliability. On the morning of February 3, 2021, her sister Megan expected to hear from her as they spoke every day. But by evening, no one had heard from Cynthia, and Megan's worry transformed into dread. Cynthia had made plans with her family that night, but never arrived. Calls went unanswered, and soon her family realized something was terribly wrong. After hours of searching, Cynthia's family found her car abandoned along a remote road near Lenore. An unsettling discovery in itself. Her keys were missing and her phone was off. The car, left as if she had simply disappeared, offered no clues. Local authorities from the Mingo County Sheriff's Office quickly joined the search. Sheriff Calvin Price gave a statement that day saying, "We're treating Cynthia's case with the utmost seriousness. We're exploring every lead, every possibility. But right now, the details are scarce, and we're hoping someone comes forward with information." Days stretched on without word, and the dread grew into a nightmare. February 11, 2021, marked a turning point when a hiker stumbled upon Cynthia's body deep in the woods, just a few miles from where her car had been found. News of her discovery spread like wildfire through Lenore, sparking fear and sorrow. It was clear that her death wasn't an accident. Cynthia had died in a violent struggle, yet no answers were found in her final resting place. Only the silent woods and the chilling memory of her life taken too soon. Detective Randy Sellers, now in charge of her case, addressed the town and media. There are elements to this case that are deeply troubling. We believe Cynthia's death wasn't an accident, and we're working around the clock to get justice for her and her family. And yet, as days passed, so did any solid leads. Every interview, every question led only to dead ends. Her life appeared unremarkable, untouched by any conflicts that would lead to such an attack. Then came the rumors, circulating online and in person. Friends and acquaintances of Cynthia posted on Facebook and Twitter speculating about unusual activity in her life. Some claimed they had seen a black SUV parked on the road near her house in the days before her disappearance. Others shared that Cynthia had mentioned receiving strange messages from an unknown person on social media. A local resident, Tracy Marshall, took to Facebook, and her post quickly spread. "I know people don't want to believe it, but there was someone watching her. People saw a black SUV on her street multiple times that week. It's time for the police to take these sightings seriously." As the rumors grew, so did the paranoia in Lenore. The black SUV became a local legend of sorts. Was it a stranger with an obsession? Or perhaps someone Cynthia trusted? Someone who could hide behind anonymity? Detective Sellers responded to the media, attempting to manage the spreading speculation. "We're aware of the sightings that have been circulating on social media, and we encourage anyone with credible information to contact us directly. Social media can help spread awareness, but it can also muddy the waters if we're not careful. We're looking for real evidence, not speculation." But the fear in Lenore had taken root. Every day seemed to bring a new rumor, a new story about Cynthia's possible final days. Anonymous tips suggested she had been dating someone new, possibly a person who had kept his true identity hidden. Others speculated she had a stalker, someone who followed her in silence before taking her life. Then came a tip about a heated argument. An anonymous caller described seeing Cynthia and a man arguing near a diner in Lenore just days before she vanished. The man, according to the caller, was driving a dark SUV and had appeared angry, gesturing wildly as Cynthia backed away. While the caller couldn't provide a full description, she was certain of the tension between them. Detective Sellers shared this new lead with the press, hoping it might lead to fresh information. "This kind of information is invaluable to us," he told the WV Gazette Mail. "If anyone else saw Cynthia that day, or if they remember seeing this vehicle, we need them to come forward." Yet, as time wore on, the silence became more profound. Each lead faded, each suspect was cleared, and Lenore's unease grew. As weeks turned into months, Cynthia's case seemed destined to become another dark memory in the town's history. Until late 2021, nearly a year after her death, when her best friend, Lori Stanton, discovered something unnerving. One evening, Lori found an envelope tucked into her car's windshield wiper. Inside was a single, grainy black and white photo of Cynthia. In the picture, Cynthia sat alone on a park bench, looking over her shoulder as if she sensed someone's gaze. No note, no signature, just that haunting image. Lori immediately contacted Detective Sellers, who began examining the photo for clues. Was it a genuine photograph or a cruel prank? The photo appeared real, but it was impossible to trace when or where it had been taken. As word spread about the photo, so did the fear in Lenore. Social media filled with speculation, with one user posting, "Whoever left that picture isn't done with this. They're still out there watching. Cynthia's case isn't cold, it's just hidden." The chilling photograph rekindled the town's anxiety, and soon after, a group called Justice for Cynthia emerged. Led by Lori, the group held rallies, organized vigils, and launched a campaign encouraging anyone with information to come forward. Lori posted on Facebook, "Cynthia didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve to live in fear, and she didn't deserve to be forgotten. Someone out there knows what happened, and we won't stop until we find them." The renewed interest brought in some new tips, but none led to a breakthrough. To this day, Cynthia Hall's murder remains unsolved, her family and friends left with nothing but the memory of her smile and the mystery of her death. The people of Lenore continue to live with the shadow of her case, and the fear that Cynthia's killer is still out there, watching, waiting, hidden in the dark woods of Mingo County. In the stillness of every February, the anniversary of her death reminds the town of what they've lost, and of the questions that linger. Cynthia's loved ones are left to wonder. Will her killer ever be found? Or will Cynthia's memory become another shadow in the mountains, a secret buried too deep to ever be uncovered? In the small town of Douglasville, Georgia, nestled among the quiet pine trees and winding country roads, the residents had always felt a sense of safety. It was the kind of place where people still kept their doors unlocked, where everyone knew everyone else's business. But in late 2018, that feeling of security was shattered. One by one, people began to go missing or were found dead under strange circumstances. There was no pattern, no sense to it. at least none that the townsfolk could see. The first disappearance was that of 34-year-old Sarah Klein, a waitress at one of the few local diners. She left her night shift one evening, her last known sighting recorded on a grainy camera outside the diner around midnight. Her car was found the next morning, still parked on the street, keys on the dashboard, but Sarah had vanished. 2 weeks later, another person went missing, a trucker named Bill Johnson passing through town on his way south. Bill had stopped at a gas station just off the highway. A clerk recalled him chatting with an unknown man, but the man's face was never caught on security cameras. After that night, Bill and his rig vanished too. Douglasville Sheriff Tom Reed went public to ease the growing fear. "We're following every lead, every single one," he told the press. "This town is my home, and we will not let it be haunted by fear." But the people weren't convinced. Rumors spread that it might be a trucker, someone coming into town only to disappear down the highway once the deed was done. Stories began circulating on social media, sightings of strange trucks and drivers in unfamiliar clothes. One resident posted in a local Facebook group, "There's someone watching us. I saw a dark rig parked on the side of Highway 78 with its lights off. Something isn't right." The case grew colder, yet more bodies appeared. Each was found within days of a large, unmarked truck rolling through town, always seen by just a handful of witnesses who couldn't quite remember the details. It didn't help that the truck was described differently each time. "It's like he's got an army of rigs," one local said on a news interview, shaking his head. Chief Reed, growing more desperate, called in federal support, but even they couldn't turn up much. "Whoever's doing this knows how to leave no trace," he said grimly. Local authorities noted in reports that these sightings, despite being scattered and vague, couldn't be pure coincidence. The local paper speculated, "Is there a serial killer stalking our highways?" Everyone in town had their theory. Some believed it was a drifter, while others thought it was someone from within, a local hiding in plain sight. True crime enthusiasts dubbed the elusive figure the Phantom Trucker. Theories abounded. Was it a rogue driver, an organized ring, or just a stranger, using the lonely southern highways as a hunting ground? Residents continued to report sightings in the town's Facebook group, Eyes on Douglasville, where one chilling post read, "He's watching us. Last night I saw his truck parked outside my neighborhood, lights off. If you see him, don't stop." The town's fear had spiraled, and many felt that they were dealing with someone who was taunting them, moving in and out of their lives, leaving only shadows and fear in his wake. With each new sighting, Sheriff Reed would issue statements, urging people to stay vigilant, to avoid isolated areas, and to report anything suspicious immediately. "We're doing all we can," he insisted. Though his words grew hollow as the months passed and the community's faith dwindled, no suspects were ever identified. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit offered a profile suggesting that the individual might be someone familiar with the area, with an almost military-like precision in covering his tracks. But this only added to the town's paranoia, leading many to suspect that the killer might be one of their own. A trucker who passed through Douglasville regularly remarked to a local news station, "I see a lot of faces on these roads, but I've never seen anything like this, a ghost on the highway." So, what do you think? Was it the work of a serial killer blending into the flow of highway traffic? Was it a local hiding among them, lurking behind a familiar face? Or is it something even stranger, a traveler leaving his haunting mark on every place he passes through? Hey everyone! Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story that's been haunting the swamps and back roads of Louisiana for over 2 decades. A case so chilling, so unexplained, that it still sends shivers down the spines of those who know the story. This is the unsolved disappearance of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, and the strange circumstances that continue to baffle investigators and locals alike. It all began on the night of July 7, 2013, in the small southern town of Wilson, Oklahoma, a sleepy place surrounded by thick woods and long empty highways. It was a night like any other, but for Molly and Colt, it was the beginning of something no one could have imagined. They were riding with a man named James Con Nip, tearing down back roads in his car, and from what people said, they were fleeing from the police. Maybe it was just reckless joyriding, or maybe something darker. We don't really know. What we do know is that Molly and Colt never made it home. The police pursued them in a high-speed chase that night, weaving through the thick Oklahoma countryside. Somewhere along the way, the car took a turn and vanished. The chase ended. The police lost them. A few hours later, James Nip was found, but Molly and Colt, gone. For days, weeks even, search teams combed through the dense woods, the swamps, and the fields surrounding the area. Helicopters, dogs, volunteers, but nothing. It was as if Molly and Colt had just disappeared into the landscape, swallowed whole by the wilderness. The strange thing is, though, people close to them started receiving phone calls. That night, Colt had called a friend. His voice was panicked, almost frantic, saying they were lost in the woods, injured, and needed help. But after that, nothing. Every call they made, every plea for help, led to dead ends. It was like they were right there, just out of reach, but nobody could find them. Now, this is where the story takes a dark turn. In the months and years that followed, rumors began to swirl. Some locals believed that Molly and Colt had run into something far more dangerous than just the wilderness. Something or someone that didn't want them found. Some say they were murdered, their bodies hidden deep in the woods, under layers of muck and water where no one would ever think to look. Others think they were victims of foul play, maybe even caught up in something bigger. Something the police weren't telling us. But there's something else. Something that makes this story even more unsettling. Over the years, people claim to have seen strange things in the woods near Wilson. A few even said they saw shadowy figures moving through the trees, only to vanish when approached. Some swear they've heard faint cries for help late at night, cries that echo through the trees but never lead to anything. Could it be the lost souls of Molly and Colt still wandering, trying to escape whatever found them that night? Or is it just the minds of the locals playing tricks after all these years? The truth is, no one knows. No one. Molly's family never stopped looking. Even after all this time, they still search, hoping for closure. Every now and then, a new tip comes in or another sighting is reported, but it never leads anywhere. It's like they're trapped in the woods, unable to get out, unable to be found. And then there's James Con Nip. He served time for the police chase, but he never gave any answers about what really happened that night. He's kept quiet, and in a town like Wilson, people don't talk much when it comes to things like this. Some think he knows more than he's letting on. Others believe he's just as clueless as the rest of us. Pause. Silence. There are still no answers, no bodies, no evidence, just the memory of two people who disappeared one hot summer night in 2013, never to be seen again. It's been over a decade, and yet the mystery lingers, like the thick fog that creeps over the swamps, hiding what's underneath. So, next time you're driving through those lonely back roads in southern Oklahoma, remember this: there are places where the woods don't just swallow people whole, they keep their secrets too. And maybe, just maybe, if you listen closely enough, you might hear the faint whispers of those who were never meant to leave. Tonight we're delving into one of the most eerie and unsolved cases in recent South Carolina history. A case that leaves people in Greenville County with more questions than answers. This is the story of Jordan Cheyenne Nebling, an 18-year-old girl who went missing in October 2020 and, to this day, hasn't been found. The search for Jordan has turned up strange leads, suspicious behavior and dead ends, but it's what we still don't know that keeps haunting the people close to her. Jordan was like any other teen in South Carolina. Friends and family described her as vibrant, with a laugh that could light up a room and an energy that just couldn't be ignored. But underneath it all, Jordan had her struggles. Her life hadn't been easy, and in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, it seemed she was starting to distance herself from those around her. Then, one night, she just vanished. Jordan was last seen on October 10, 2020, when a friend reportedly gave her a ride to her ex-boyfriend's house in Travelers Rest, a quiet town nestled in Greenville County. She was dropped off late in the evening, around 10:30 p.m., and according to that friend, she was fine when they left. But that night, Jordan didn't return, and the next morning she wasn't answering her phone. Her family started to worry. According to Deputy Marcus Williams of the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, Jordan's case was complicated from the start. We didn't have much to go on. There were no witnesses, no surveillance footage, and everyone's accounts seemed different, disjointed. But what stands out most is that since she was last seen, there's been no activity on her phone, no bank transactions, nothing. It's as if she simply ceased to exist. The days turned into weeks, and still, Jordan was nowhere to be found. Her family began to suspect foul play, but they were met with silence. Her mother, Mary Tucker, took to social media, posting regular updates and asking the public for any information, no matter how small. In one of her posts, she wrote, "If anyone knows anything, if you've heard something, if you saw her that night, please come forward. My baby girl deserves to come home." The post spread widely across social media. Local news stations picked up the story, and soon Jordan's face was everywhere. But the mystery only deepened. Friends and acquaintances started whispering about her ex-boyfriend, the last person who reportedly saw her. Some people in the community began to wonder if he knew more than he was letting on. But when questioned by police, he denied having any involvement in her disappearance, claiming he hadn't seen or heard from her since that night. As the investigation stretched on, strange details started to emerge. In the weeks before she disappeared, Jordan had told friends that she felt like she was being followed. She had mentioned seeing the same car on her street multiple times, and once even said she thought someone was watching her from the woods near her home. Her mother, in an interview with a local news station, tearfully explained she was scared. She didn't know who it was, but she knew someone was out there, watching. Detectives searched her ex-boyfriend's property, and while they found no evidence tying him to her disappearance, rumors began to fly. People in the town whispered about his temper, about how things had gone south between him and Jordan in the months before she vanished. He wasn't charged, but the cloud of suspicion never left him. Months passed, and just when it seemed like the case had gone cold, a witness came forward with a chilling account. According to the witness, a young man in a neighboring town claimed to have seen Jordan the day after her disappearance. He said she looked distressed, disoriented, as though she hadn't slept. The witness's story was difficult to verify, but it raised even more questions. If Jordan had been seen alive the day after she vanished, where had she gone? And why had she been acting so strangely? Jordan's family held vigils and put up missing person posters throughout Greenville County. The community rallied around them, but as time wore on, hope began to fade. Detective Sarah Langston, who took over the case in late 2021, told local reporters, "It's one of the strangest cases I've worked on. There's a pattern to most disappearances, a trail, even if it's faint. But with Jordan, it's like every lead we get goes nowhere. Someone out there knows what happened to her, but they're staying quiet." Even now, the people of Greenville remember Jordan. Her name comes up in local online groups, in whispers at the diner, and the questions of people who still hope she'll come home. One Twitter user posted, "How does an 18-year-old just disappear off the face of the earth? Someone out there knows something." Jordan's case remains open. Investigators haven't given up, and neither has her family. But each passing year takes them further from the night she was last seen. Every road in Greenville County seems to carry her memory, but her case, like so many others, may go unanswered. The question remains, will Jordan ever be found? Or will she remain a haunting presence, a face on a poster, a mystery that continues to chill those who remember her? Hey there. Tonight we're going to dive deep into one of the most disturbing and unsolved murder cases from the southern United States. It's a case that still gives people chills, not just because of the brutal crime itself, but because of the strange and mysterious circumstances surrounding it. This is the story of the Jamison family murders, an entire family that disappeared in the remote wilderness of Oklahoma, only to be found dead under the most chilling conditions. It all started in October 2009 when Bobby, Sherilyn, and their 6-year-old daughter Madison Jamison packed up their truck and headed out to a remote area in the Sandboys Mountains near the town of Eufaula, Oklahoma. They were looking for land to purchase, dreaming of a new life, far away from the noise and stress of their current home. Bobby and Sherilyn were known to keep to themselves. They didn't have a lot of close friends, and people in town said they were struggling financially. But the family had hopes of starting fresh in the quiet hills of southeastern Oklahoma. On October 8th, they set off into the mountains, planning to check out a plot of land. And then, they disappeared. For 8 days, no one heard from them. No phone calls, no sightings, nothing. It wasn't until their truck was found, abandoned on a dirt road in those very mountains, that people realized something was seriously wrong. Here's where things get strange. The family's truck was still packed with all their belongings, Bobby's wallet, Sherilyn's purse, and Madison's beloved pet dog, who was still alive but barely clinging to life, locked inside. But the family? Gone. No sign of a struggle, no blood, nothing that could explain why they would leave their truck behind in the middle of nowhere. And even more unsettling, inside the truck was $32,000 in cash. Why would they leave behind such a huge sum of money? Search parties were launched. Law enforcement, volunteers, and even FBI agents combed the thick forest for weeks. But it seemed like the Jamisons had vanished into thin air. For 4 years, the case went cold. The only clues were the strange items left in the truck: money, a GPS unit, and a cryptic message found in Sherilyn's journal. There were rumors, of course. People started talking about how Bobby and Sherilyn had been acting strangely in the months leading up to their disappearance. Some said they were paranoid, convinced they were being stalked by dark forces. Others believed the family had gotten involved in something dangerous, something that led to their deaths. But it wasn't until November 2013 that the truth, or part of it, came to light. In the fall of that year, hunters stumbled upon the skeletal remains of Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison, lying side by side in the woods just 3 miles from where their truck had been found. The discovery raised more questions than answers. The bodies were badly decomposed, and due to the condition of the remains, the medical examiner couldn't determine the cause of death. There were no signs of trauma, no gunshot wounds, no stab marks, nothing that could definitively explain how they died. But here's where it gets really creepy. Investigators found no reason why the Jamisons would have wandered so deep into the forest. They weren't hikers, and they weren't familiar with the rough terrain of the Sandboys Mountains. Some believe they were forced into the woods, but by who or what? As with many unsolved cases, the rumors began to spread. Some people believed the Jamisons were killed by a local cult. You see, Sherilyn had claimed that they were being haunted by spirits, dark, malevolent forces that were tormenting their family. In fact, friends said she had become obsessed with witchcraft, using Ouija boards in an attempt to communicate with the dead. Did they get too close to something they shouldn't have? Something otherworldly? And then there's the theory that the Jamisons were murdered because of drug activity. The area they were found in is known for meth production, and some believe that Bobby or Sherilyn had somehow crossed paths with dangerous people involved in the drug trade. But if that's the case, why leave the cash behind in the truck? The investigation also uncovered strange footage from the security camera installed at the Jamisons' home. It showed Bobby and Sherilyn packing their truck on the morning they left. But what caught everyone's attention was the way they were moving, slowly, deliberately, almost as if they were in a trance. Over and over, they went back and forth from the house to the truck, placing items in the back, but never speaking to each other. It was eerie, to say the least. What was going through their minds? To this day, no one knows what really happened to the Jamison family. Was it murder, an accident, something supernatural? The theories are endless, but the truth remains buried in the remote wilderness of southeastern Oklahoma, where their bodies were found. And that brings us to the present. More than a decade later, the case is still unsolved. The authorities closed the case, ruling the deaths as undetermined. But the people of Eufaula, Oklahoma, they haven't forgotten. There are still whispers in town. Whispers about what really happened to Bobby, Sherilyn, and little Madison in those dark woods. Pause. Silence. Maybe the answer lies out there somewhere in those dense trees. Or maybe it's something darker, something we're not meant to understand. Whatever it is, the Jamison family case remains one of the creepiest and most disturbing mysteries in Southern history. So, the next time you're out in the woods, just remember, not every mystery gets solved. And sometimes the darkest truths are the ones that stay hidden. In the quiet town of Greenwood, South Carolina, the name Hayes carries weight. The Hayes family is known not just for their wealth, but for their far-reaching influence. They're the kind of family whose name is on local libraries, hospitals, and historic buildings, pillars of the community who seem untouchable, respectable. But beneath their polished reputation lies a mystery that has haunted Greenwood for nearly a decade. It all began on a rainy night in September 2015. Claire Hayes, the 25-year-old daughter of Charles and Evelyn Hayes, disappeared under circumstances so strange that it has left locals, law enforcement, and the media grappling with theories ever since. Claire was the picture of Southern charm, well-educated, friendly, and often involved in the family's philanthropic events. She just returned to Greenwood after finishing graduate school in Charleston, ready to join the family's business and perhaps take on more public-facing roles. But her sudden vanishing act threw a dark shadow over the family and left the town in shock. That evening, Claire was last seen leaving the Hunter's Lodge, a rustic bar on the outskirts of Greenwood. Friends said she had been acting out of character, tense, distracted, and checking her phone repeatedly. Several patrons even noted her looking over her shoulder as though someone was following her. But according to those friends, she brushed it off, saying, "It's just family stuff." Claire left the bar around 10:30 p.m., and that was the last time anyone saw her. By the next morning, her car was found abandoned on a dirt road leading back to the Hayes family estate, nestled on a secluded piece of land on the edge of Greenwood. Her keys were still in the ignition, and her phone lay on the passenger seat. But of Claire, there was no sign. When the Greenwood County Sheriff's Department began investigating, they quickly realized this wouldn't be a simple missing persons case. Sheriff Tom Garrett, who was leading the case, said to reporters, "This isn't typical. Claire didn't just vanish. There's something about this case that doesn't sit right." The Hayes family put up a strong front, working with local law enforcement, making public statements, and even offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to Claire's whereabouts. Charles Hayes, Claire's father and the CEO of Hayes Enterprises, gave an emotional plea on NBC's local affiliate. "Claire, if you're out there, know that we love you, that we're doing everything we can to bring you home. We won't rest until you're safe." But within days, whispers began to circulate. People who had worked for the Hayes family, housekeepers, groundskeepers, and former employees, hinted at secrets the family had fought to keep hidden. The Hayes family was known for their influence, their ability to get what they wanted, and the rumors grew that they might have been keeping things quiet about Claire's life. Several of Claire's friends shared anonymously that in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, she'd confided in them, saying she felt trapped. One friend told the Greenwood Gazette, Claire hinted that there were things about her family she was afraid of. She didn't say much, but she was different when she came back from Charleston. She seemed scared. Despite the suspicions, the case went cold quickly. No evidence of foul play surfaced, no ransom demand, no leads. It was as though Claire had simply walked off the face of the earth. As the weeks turned into months, Greenwood became divided. Some believed the Hayes family was hiding information, that their influence had slowed the investigation. Others stood by the family, insisting that they were victims of a tragedy, not the cause of one. Then, in early 2016, a shocking twist brought the case back to the headlines. In the middle of the night, a local hiker stumbled across a series of belongings scattered in the woods near Lake Greenwood, miles from where Claire's car had been found. Among the items was a bracelet, a distinctive gold chain with an emerald charm that Claire was known to wear. Alongside the bracelet was a torn piece of fabric, seemingly from the dress she had been wearing the night she vanished. The sheriff's department expanded their search to the area around the lake. Sheriff Garrett stated, "This discovery raises serious questions about where Claire might have been taken, and we're not ruling out foul play. Someone out there knows what happened." At this point, the whispers became louder. People started wondering if there was something even darker lurking in the Hayes family's history. Anonymous social media accounts claiming to have insider knowledge of the family's inner workings began posting cryptic messages. One post on Twitter read, "The Hayes don't lose things unless they want to. Greenwood has no idea who they really are." The post was deleted within hours, but screenshots circulated, sparking wild theories. Speculation reached a fever pitch when Emily Clark, a former nanny for the Hayes family, came forward in an interview with a local news outlet. "There's a reason I left that job," she stated. "Things happened in that house. Things that don't add up. Claire was always the good daughter. But there was tension, especially with her father." When asked to elaborate, she declined, saying, "I'm not risking my safety, but people need to know this family isn't what they seem." The public response was explosive. Residents of Greenwood, who had once revered the Hayes family, began looking at them with suspicion. Social media lit up with hashtags like #WhatHappenedToClaire and #HayesSecrets. People demanded answers, but the Hayes family remained silent, issuing only a brief statement through their attorney. The Hayes family continues to hope for Claire's safe return. They remain focused on supporting law enforcement in any way they can and ask for privacy during this challenging time. By late 2016, the case had once again gone cold, with no further evidence, no sightings, and no answers. Some locals grew convinced that the Hayes family's influence was too strong, that anyone who might have known something was too scared to come forward. Detective Garrett, however, wasn't ready to give up. Speaking to WIS News that December, he said, "People with money and power are used to getting what they want, but that doesn't mean the truth won't come out. One way or another, we're going to find out what happened to Claire." Then, nearly a year after her disappearance, a bombshell rocked Greenwood. Ethan Hayes, Claire's 28-year-old brother, was brought in for questioning after he was allegedly heard making incriminating statements at a party. According to a witness, Ethan, in a drunken state, had muttered, "Claire was always the problem. But now she's gone." The witness went to the police with their account, sparking renewed interest in Ethan as a possible suspect. However, Despite the witness's account, no evidence was found to tie Ethan to his sister's disappearance. He was released, and the Hayes family dismissed the claims, calling them an outrageous attack on a grieving brother. But the town wasn't convinced. People began to wonder if Ethan knew more than he was letting on, if maybe he had been involved, either directly or indirectly, in whatever had happened to Claire. Today, nearly a decade later, Claire Hayes remains missing, her case still open, though no closer to being solved. The town of Greenwood lives in the shadow of the Hayes family, a once beloved institution now tainted by whispers and suspicion. Some say they see Claire's spirit wandering near the lake, a lost soul caught between worlds, never able to rest. What do you think really happened that night in Greenwood? Do you believe Ethan's slip was a confession? Was Claire truly trying to escape something darker in her family, or is the Hayes family, despite their wealth and power, simply another family torn apart by tragedy? Tonight, we're diving into a haunting case from the heart of the southeastern United States, a place known for its charm, its hospitality, and, as we'll soon discover, its secrets. This is the story of Carla Jennings from Montgomery, Alabama, a wife, a mother, and now, the primary suspect in the mysterious death of her husband, James Jennings, a case that remains unsolved and unyielding, even after years of investigation. It was May 15, 2015, a quiet spring night. The Jennings family was well known in Montgomery. James was a respected contractor, and Carla was involved in various local charities, always seen as the picture of Southern grace. But beneath the surface, things were far from perfect. As friends and family would later reveal, the Jennings marriage was under strain, with rumors of jealousy, financial troubles, and whispers of something darker. That night, around 11 p.m., Carla dialed 911, her voice frantic and nearly incomprehensible. "My husband, he's not breathing," she managed to say between sobs. First responders arrived at the Jennings suburban home within minutes, finding James lying face down in their bedroom. At first glance, it looked like a tragic accident, but as they examined the scene more closely, questions began to emerge. According to Detective Marcus Ridley, who led the investigation, there was just something off. James had bruising on his neck, and there were signs of a struggle. This wasn't a simple case of someone just collapsing. Something happened in that room. Initially, Carla claimed James had been drinking heavily that night and fell, hitting his head. But the autopsy report contradicted her story, revealing that James had died from strangulation. Suddenly, the case shifted from an accident to a potential murder investigation, with Carla becoming the main suspect. As the news spread, the Montgomery community was stunned. Social media lit up with theories. One post read, "How could she do that to him? They seemed like the perfect couple." Another added, "There's no way she did it. She loved him." But then again, sometimes people hide their true selves. In the days following James's death, more unsettling details emerged. Carla had recently taken out a substantial life insurance policy on James, increasing it by nearly double just months before his death. When questioned about it, Carla explained, "It was just a precaution. We have kids to think about." But to Detective Ridley and his team, this looked like a classic case of motive. The investigation into Carla's life uncovered more troubling signs. Friends reported seeing her with another man, a local attorney named Paul Matthews, at odd hours, and rumors of an affair began to circulate. When asked about Paul, Carla dismissed it, saying, "He's just a friend, someone to talk to. James was working so much. I was lonely." But James's family wasn't convinced. His sister, Martha Jennings, went on record, saying, "I knew something wasn't right with Carla. She was always different. I don't know what my brother saw in her, but I had my suspicions." As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered messages between Carla and Paul, messages that hinted at a closer relationship than she admitted to. In one text, Carla wrote, "I'm tired of living like this. I just want it to be over." Investigators interpreted this as a reference to her marriage, but Carla claimed it was about the stress of balancing family responsibilities. Paul was brought in for questioning, but he denied any involvement, stating, "Carla was just a friend. We confided in each other, but that's it. I had no idea about James." Despite growing suspicions, no conclusive evidence tied Carla directly to James's death. Her fingerprints were found on his neck, but as her defense argued, they were married. Of course, her fingerprints would be there. Months turned into years, and the case grew cold. Carla maintained her innocence, continuing to live in Montgomery, albeit shunned by many who once called her a friend. She seldom spoke publicly about the incident, only once commenting, "People love to talk, to judge, but they don't know what really happened." Today, James Jennings' death remains an unsolved mystery, a case that haunts Montgomery's quiet streets and lingers in the minds of those who knew him. Some say Carla got away with murder. Others believe she's the victim of a tragic misunderstanding, caught in the web of suspicion and rumors. What do you think? Was Carla Jennings truly guilty, or is she innocent, trapped by circumstance? Could Paul Matthews know more than he's saying? And why did she increase the life insurance policy just before James's death? Let us know what you think. Southern towns always seem to have their secrets, the kind that people don't talk about, at least not in the open. The kind that makes you feel like the air gets a little heavier when you get too close to the truth. This is one of those stories. Today we're taking a closer look at a case that still haunts the small, close-knit town of Panola County, Mississippi, the brutal murder of Jessica Chambers. It's a case that's filled with strange twists, a chilling crime scene, and unanswered questions that still linger to this day. And the most disturbing part? The killer might still be out there. Jessica Chambers was just 19 years old when her life was brutally cut short in December 2014. She was described by her friends and family as outgoing, kind, and always ready to help anyone in need. On the night of December 6, 2014, something unthinkable happened. Jessica was found on a rural road near her burning car, her body so severely burned that responding firefighters were horrified. One of the firefighters on the scene that night, Daniel Cole, later described what he saw as something that would never leave him. She was walking down the road on fire. That's an image I'll never forget. Jessica was still alive when they found her. According to first responders, she was trying to speak, trying to tell them something. Reports state that she managed to utter a name, though the exact name she said has been a point of intense debate ever since. Jessica was rushed to the hospital, but she succumbed to her injuries the next day. Her body had been burned over 98% of its surface. It was a brutal end for a young woman who had her whole life ahead of her. Investigators were immediately tasked with finding who did this to her. Who would set someone on fire, and why? The case attracted national media attention, with people across the country horrified by the brutal nature of the crime. Panola County Sheriff Dennis Darby told the press at the time, "This is one of the most horrific things I've seen in my 30 years of law enforcement. Whoever did this needs to be caught. They're a danger to everyone." But as investigators began to dig into Jessica's life and the events leading up to her murder, things took a turn for the strange. Jessica had spent her last day driving around town, reportedly visiting multiple friends and acquaintances. Security footage from a local gas station showed her filling up her car's gas tank just hours before she was found burned alive. She didn't appear to be in distress at the time. Everything seemed normal, but the investigation quickly became muddied. Rumors began to swirl around town. Some people claimed that Jessica had been involved with a dangerous crowd, tied up in drugs and crime. Others pointed to the possibility of a personal grudge. The small-town gossip ran wild, and soon it seemed that everyone had a theory about what had happened to Jessica Chambers. One of the most debated aspects of the case was the name Jessica reportedly said to the first responders. Some claimed she had said Eric or Derek, but despite the focus on those names, no solid leads ever emerged. In fact, investigators questioned several men named Eric or Derek in the area, but none of those interviews resulted in an arrest. Quentin Tellis, a man who had known Jessica, was eventually arrested and charged with her murder. Tellis had a criminal record and had been in contact with Jessica on the day she died. Prosecutors claimed that Tellis had killed Jessica after she refused his advances, but there was no direct forensic evidence tying him to the scene of the crime. The case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence, including cell phone records that placed Tellis in the same area as Jessica on the night of her murder. Despite this, the case didn't unfold as many expected. Tellis went to trial twice for Jessica's murder, once in 2017 and again in 2018. Both trials ended in mistrials, with jurors unable to reach a unanimous verdict. The evidence, while compelling to some, wasn't enough to convince all 12 jurors of Tellis's guilt. And so, the case remains officially unsolved. Tellis, for his part, has maintained his innocence throughout the proceedings. In an interview with WREG Memphis, his defense attorney Darla Palmer said, "The state's case was built on assumptions, not facts. There is simply no hard evidence linking Quentin to the scene of this horrific crime." But even with the trials, the town of Cortland, Mississippi, has been left with more questions than answers. People wonder if the killer is still out there, blending in, pretending like nothing happened. The idea that someone in their own community could be responsible for such a heinous act has left a mark on the town that won't fade anytime soon. Online forums and social media have exploded with theories about what really happened to Jessica. Some believe that she had crossed paths with a violent drug gang and was silenced. Others think that her murder was personal, the result of a deep-seated grudge. But the lack of solid evidence has left these theories just that, speculation. One chilling theory that's gained traction is that Jessica may have known her killer well, possibly someone she trusted. The fact that she was found near her car, still trying to talk, suggests that she may have thought she was safe at first, that whoever attacked her had managed to gain her trust before things turned deadly. Social media has played a significant role in keeping this case alive. A Facebook page titled Justice for Jessica remains active, with users posting theories, updates, and memories of the young woman. One post reads, "Whoever did this to Jessica is still out there. We can't rest until justice is served." It's been almost a decade since Jessica Chambers was brutally murdered, and the people of Panola County are still waiting for justice. Her case, with its strange details and chilling final moments, has left a scar on this small southern town, one that may never fully heal until her killer is found and held accountable. As of today, the case remains open. Local law enforcement continues to receive tips, but there have been no arrests since Tellis's mistrials. The town, like so many others haunted by unsolved murders, lives with the uneasy feeling that the person responsible might still be among them, hiding in plain sight. So what really happened to Jessica Chambers? Was her killer a stranger, a friend, or something even more terrifying? A member of her community who has managed to keep their dark secret hidden? One thing is certain, until the truth comes out, the story of Jessica Chambers will continue to haunt the quiet streets of Cortland, Mississippi, and the hearts of those who knew her. Hey everyone! Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story that's been haunting the swamps and back roads of Louisiana for over 2 decades. A case so chilling, so unexplained, that it still sends shivers down the spines of those who know the story. This is the unsolved disappearance of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, and the strange circumstances that continue to baffle investigators and locals alike. It all began on the night of July 7th, 2013, in the small southern town of Wilson, Oklahoma, a sleepy place surrounded by thick woods and long empty highways. It was a night like any other, but for Molly and Colt, it was the beginning of something no one could have imagined. They were riding with a man named James Con Nip, tearing down back roads in his car, and from what people said, they were fleeing from the police. Maybe it was just reckless joyriding, or maybe something darker. We don't really know. What we do know is that Molly and Colt never made it home. The police pursued them in a high-speed chase that night, weaving through the thick Oklahoma countryside. Somewhere along the way, the car took a turn and vanished. The chase ended. The police lost them. A few hours later, James Nip was found, but Molly and Colt, gone. For days, weeks even, search teams combed through the dense woods, the swamps, and the fields surrounding the area. Helicopters, dogs, volunteers, but nothing. It was as if Molly and Colt had just disappeared into the landscape, swallowed whole by the wilderness. The strange thing is, though, people close to them started receiving phone calls. That night, Colt had called a friend. His voice was panicked, almost frantic, saying they were lost in the woods, injured, and needed help. But after that, nothing. Every call they made, every plea for help, led to dead ends. It was like they were right there, just out of reach, but nobody could find them. Now, this is where the story takes a dark turn. In the months and years that followed, rumors began to swirl. Some locals believed that Molly and Colt had run into something far more dangerous than just the wilderness. Something or someone that didn't want them found. Some say they were murdered, their bodies hidden deep in the woods, under layers of muck and water where no one would ever think to look. Others think they were victims of foul play, maybe even caught up in something bigger. Something the police weren't telling us. But there's something else. Something that makes this story even more unsettling. Over the years, people claim to have seen strange things in the woods near Wilson. A few even said they saw shadowy figures moving through the trees, only to vanish when approached. Some swear they've heard faint cries for help late at night, cries that echo through the trees but never lead to anything. Could it be the lost souls of Molly and Colt still wandering, trying to escape whatever found them that night? Or is it just the minds of the locals playing tricks after all these years? The truth is, no one knows. No one. Molly's family never stopped looking. Even after all this time, they still search, hoping for closure. Every now and then, a new tip comes in or another sighting is reported, but it never leads anywhere. It's like they're trapped in the woods, unable to get out, unable to be found. And then there's James Con Nip. He served time for the police chase, but he never gave any answers about what really happened that night. He's kept quiet, and in a town like Wilson, people don't talk much when it comes to things like this. Some think he knows more than he's letting on. Others believe he's just as clueless as the rest of us. Pause. Silence. There are still no answers, no bodies, no evidence, just the memory of two people who disappeared one hot summer night in 2013, never to be seen again. It's been over a decade, and yet the mystery lingers, like the thick fog that creeps over the swamps, hiding what's underneath. So, next time you're driving through those lonely back roads in southern Oklahoma, remember this: there are places where the woods don't just swallow people whole, they keep their secrets too. And maybe, just maybe, if you listen closely enough, you might hear the faint whispers of those who were never meant to leave. In the heart of Charleston, South Carolina, a city that thrives on history and mystery, a chilling tale has left the community in shock. This story centers on Isabella Green, a 32-year-old socialite with a glamorous life and a dark, hidden past. Isabella disappeared on a warm October night in 2018, and to this day, her case remains unsolved, leaving a series of questions that nobody can answer. Isabella was known around Charleston's high society circles as a lively, charming woman who was often seen at charity events and exclusive gatherings. Her life seemed perfect: a successful career, friends in influential places, and a stunning home in the historic French Quarter. But, as authorities would soon learn, Isabella's life was not as flawless as it appeared. On the night of October 5, 2018, Isabella attended a charity gala at the Charleston Art Museum. Friends later recounted that she was radiant as ever, laughing and mingling with guests. But there was something different about her that night. According to one friend, Sarah Wilkes, Isabella seemed distracted, almost as if she was nervous about something. She kept looking at her phone and stepping outside, which was unusual for her. By midnight, Isabella left the gala alone, telling a few friends that she wasn't feeling well. That was the last time anyone saw her. The next morning, when Isabella didn't show up for a brunch she had planned, her closest friends grew worried. They called her repeatedly, but all calls went straight to voicemail. Concerned, Sarah went to Isabella's townhouse and found it locked, with her car still parked in the driveway. By evening, Isabella was officially reported missing. Detectives with the Charleston Police Department launched a full investigation, but as they started looking into Isabella's life, they uncovered a series of secrets she had carefully hidden. According to Detective Marcus Haynes, who was assigned to her case, Isabella Green had a life most people envied, but there were parts of her history that she kept locked away, parts that she clearly didn't want anyone to know about. In the first few days after her disappearance, investigators searched her townhouse for clues. They found her phone, powered off and stashed in a drawer, along with a stack of old letters tied with a faded red ribbon. The letters were addressed to Isabella from a man named Thomas Lane, a name none of her friends recognized. In the letters, Thomas wrote of their past life together in Savannah, Georgia, revealing a romantic relationship that ended abruptly a few years prior. The letters painted a picture of an intense, almost obsessive relationship. In one letter, Thomas wrote, "You can't run from me, Bella. We are bound even if you want to forget it. I will always find you." The discovery of these letters added a new layer of complexity to Isabella's case. Friends began to wonder if she had been trying to escape something or someone, perhaps a part of her past she had hoped to leave behind. Then, a week after Isabella's disappearance, her credit card was used at a gas station on the outskirts of Savannah, just a few miles from where Thomas Lane reportedly lived. Security footage showed a woman matching Isabella's description purchasing gas, looking over her shoulder the entire time. But by the time detectives arrived, there was no trace of her. When the footage was released to the public, social media exploded with theories. One Twitter user posted, "Maybe she's hiding from something or someone. A ghost from her past?" Another added, "That look on her face. She was scared. What if Thomas Lane was there, just out of view?" Detective Haynes made a statement to the media saying, "We have reason to believe that Isabella may have traveled to Savannah, but we're not ruling anything out. Our primary goal is to find her and understand what led to her disappearance." But as the investigation continued, more questions surfaced. It turned out that Thomas Lane wasn't just an ex-lover, he had a criminal record, one that included charges of stalking and harassment. Although these charges were from years earlier, it added a layer of unease to an already troubling case. Was Thomas Lane still in Isabella's life? Had he been following her? When detectives questioned Thomas, he denied any involvement, stating, "Isabella left me. She wanted nothing to do with me, and I respected that. I haven't spoken to her in years," but police were skeptical, especially given the contents of his letters. Then came a startling twist. 2 months after Isabella vanished, a woman claiming to be her reached out to her family through an anonymous email, saying she was safe but needed to stay hidden for reasons she couldn't explain. "I'm okay," the email read. "I just can't come back right now. Please don't look for me." The email was traced to an IP address in Atlanta, Georgia, but by the time authorities followed up, the trail had gone cold. As months turned into years, Isabella's case became one of Charleston's most haunting mysteries. Friends and family continued to search, hiring private investigators and keeping her story alive in the media. Sarah Wilkes, her best friend, still posts about her on social media, urging anyone with information to come forward. "I just want to know what happened to her," Sarah said in an interview with Charleston Today. "It's been years, but I still believe she's out there. I just need answers." Despite numerous leads, Isabella's case remains unsolved. Some believe she is still out there, hiding from a dark secret that she couldn't escape. Others fear the worst, that she met with foul play, and that her secrets died with her. To this day, Isabella Green's disappearance remains one of the most chilling unsolved cases in Charleston. Was she running from a dangerous man, or was there something even more sinister lurking in her past? Was the woman on the gas station footage truly Isabella, or was it someone else using her card to send a message? What do you think? Do you believe Isabella is still out there hiding from her past? Could Thomas Lane have played a role in her disappearance? Or is there a deeper, darker secret that we may never understand?
Nestled in the heart of South Carolina, Allendale is a town where time seems to stand still. With a population of just over 3,000, it is a place where everyone knows each other, and life moves at a gentle, predictable pace. The warm, humid air carries the scent of pine and magnolia, and the streets are lined with charming historic homes. The local diner, the centerpiece of the town's social life, buzzes with conversations about family, weather, and local gossip every morning. Allendale is the kind of town where doors are left unlocked and children play outside until dusk without a care. Its residents take pride in their community, participating in town fairs, church gatherings, and high school football games. The town's sense of security and stability is its defining characteristic, a seemingly unshakable foundation. However, beneath this serene surface, an undercurrent of fear and uncertainty was about to disrupt this idyllic existence. The events that would soon unfold started quietly, almost imperceptibly. At first, there were whispers of strange occurrences, but these were quickly dismissed as overactive imaginations. After all, what could truly trouble a town like Allendale, where the greatest excitement was the annual Peach Festival? Little did they know, a storm was brewing, a storm that would shatter their peace and leave them questioning everything they thought they knew about their safe haven. The sweltering summer of 2023 will forever be etched in Allendale's memory. Marie Singleton, a night shift nurse, disappeared without a trace. Her car was found abandoned on Highway 278. The engine was warm, but the doors were locked. Local police, led by Chief Ronald Hayes, found no leads. Marie Singleton was truly gone, and no one could explain how or why. Fear crept into Allendale as more individuals vanished. News of Marie's disappearance spread through Allendale like wildfire. The usual chatter at the Allendale diner took on a somber tone. Concern for Marie was etched on every face. Theories, ranging from plausible to outlandish, fueled the growing anxiety.
Some folks clung to the hope that Marie had simply run off. Others whispered about more sinister possibilities. Had she been the victim of a crime? The uncertainty was agonizing for Marie's family and friends.
Days stretched into nights, each one colder and lonelier without Marie. The weight of the unknown pressed heavily on Allendale, prompting the local police force into action. Chief Ronald Hayes found himself navigating uncharted waters. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle, just an empty car and a deafening silence.
The investigation started with Marie's abandoned car. Forensic teams dusted for fingerprints, hoping for a clue. They meticulously combed the area, searching for any sign. Chief Hayes addressed the community, urging anyone with information to come forward.
Days melted into weeks, and the initial shock of Marie's disappearance slowly morphed into a gnawing, persistent dread.
The leads that surfaced, faint glimmers of hope in the darkness, invariably led to dead ends.
A witness who thought they saw Marie at a gas station in the next town over turned out to be mistaken.
The cryptic message received by a friend, initially thought to be a clue, was nothing more than a technical glitch.
The lack of progress fueled a wildfire of speculation.
Rumors, those insidious whispers that thrive in the absence of facts, began to circulate.
Some whispered about a shadowy figure lurking in the outskirts of town, preying on unsuspecting victims.
Others spoke of a sinister car, its windows tinted black, seen speeding away from the highway where Marie's car was found.
The more the rumours spread, the more fear tightened its grip on Allendale.
Parents kept their children close, no longer allowing them to roam freely.
The once familiar streets, once imbued with a sense of warmth and camaraderie, now felt ominous, shrouded in an unsettling silence.
The disappearance of Marie Singleton had, in a matter of weeks, unravelled the fabric of their community, leaving behind a raw, exposed nerve of fear.
The townspeople of Allendale, once bound by a shared sense of security and trust, now found themselves looking at each other with suspicion, their hearts heavy with the chilling realization, if Marie could vanish without a trace, who else might be in danger? The hope that Marie Singleton's disappearance was an isolated incident was shattered just weeks later.
James Jimmy Ray, a trucker passing through Allendale, became the next name on the list of the missing.
Jimmy, known for his friendly demeanour, was last seen at a truck stop on the outskirts of town.
But when morning came, Jimmy's rig was empty, and he was nowhere to be found.
The disappearance of a second person sent a shockwave through Allendale. As fear tightened its grip on Allendale, another tragedy struck.
Bethany Harris, a young mother of 3, became the next victim.
She vanished without a trace, her disappearance as sudden and inexplicable as the others.
The similarities between Bethany's disappearance and the previous cases were impossible to ignore.
The police, under mounting pressure, found themselves with more questions than answers. As the investigation into the disappearances stalled, a chilling pattern began to emerge. Witnesses recalled seeing a large, nondescript semi-truck in the vicinity of each disappearance.
The descriptions were vague. A dark-coloured cab, its windows tinted black, a licence plate obscured by dirt.
The truck became a phantom, appearing and disappearing at the edges of the investigation. It was spotted at the truck stop where Jimmy Ray was last seen and near the diner where Bethany Harris vanished.
The sightings, though fragmented, were too frequent to dismiss as coincidence.
A theory began to take shape, spreading through the town like wildfire. Could the truck be the common thread linking the disappearances? Fear, like a virus, spread through Allendale, infecting every corner of their once peaceful town. The disappearances, once a distant worry, now felt close, personal, a chilling reminder of their vulnerability.
In the face of uncertainty, a group of residents, united by fear and a burning desire for answers, decided to take matters into their own hands. They called themselves the Watchers.
The Watchers began as a small, informal gathering, concerned neighbours sharing anxieties over cups of coffee, exchanging rumours and piecing together fragments of information. But as the disappearances continued, their ranks swelled, drawing in residents from all walks of life. Teachers, shopkeepers, retirees, all united by a shared sense of urgency and a growing distrust of the official investigation.
Their online presence grew rapidly. What started as a closed Facebook group, a platform to share local updates and coordinate neighbourhood watch patrols, quickly evolved into a digital hub for everything related to the Allendale disappearances. Photos, videos, and eyewitness accounts, some credible, others bordering on the fantastical, flooded the group's page.
The watchers saw themselves as the eyes and ears of Allendale, determined to uncover the truth that seemed to elude the authorities. They scoured local businesses for security footage, hoping to catch a glimpse of the phantom truck. They organized patrols, their cars slowly cruising the streets at night, their eyes peeled for anything out of the ordinary. As the watchers grew bolder, fear transformed Allendale.
Strangers, once greeted warmly, were now met with wary glances. Parents kept their children indoors, their laughter replaced by silence. Businesses struggled, and the Allendale diner saw a drastic decline in customers. Some residents fled, while others retreated into their homes, turning them into prisons of fear.
The fear that gripped the town cast a long dark shadow over their once vibrant community.
The line between vigilance and paranoia blurred.
The watchers, driven by a desire to protect, found themselves caught in a web of suspicion.
Their online forum became an echo chamber of fear, amplifying every rumour.
The phantom trucker became a monstrous embodiment of their anxieties.
Sleep became a luxury, nights punctuated by nightmares.
Neighbours turned against neighbours, and the search for truth sowed seeds of discord. The investigation had hit a wall, leads cold and witnesses unreliable.
The weight of the town's fear pressed down on me.
Late one night, a detail caught Chief Hayes' eye, a large, dark truck parked near the diner.
It was a potential lifeline, a connection between the disappearances.
Similar descriptions of a dark truck appeared in other cases.
The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place.
Chief Hayes shifted the focus of the investigation to truck stops.
The police department buzzed with activity, anticipation thick in the air.
After days of reviewing footage, they got their break. A dark blue semi captured on camera.
The truck matched witness descriptions, a tangible lead at last.
The driver, obscured by shadows, entered the diner, but the truck vanished before sunrise.
We had a piece of evidence that could lead us to the person responsible.
A chilling pattern emerged from the truck stop footage.
The truck's presence in Allendale matched the timelines of each disappearance.
The truck wasn't just passing through, it was there for a reason.
The phantom trucker felt like a tangible threat, a predator stalking our town.
The fear in Allendale intensified, knowing the person responsible might be closer than they thought.
The realization elevated the case to something far more sinister.
The news of the truck spread through Allendale like wildfire.
The sight of a semi-truck now filled residents with dread.
The watchers intensified their patrols, their eyes peeled for any sign of the phantom truck.
The online forum took on a more urgent tone, filled with pleas for information.
The fear in Allendale was palpable, a suffocating presence in daily life.
The town had become a place of whispers and shadows, suspicion lingering in the air.
The discovery of the dark blue semi sent shockwaves through the police department.
Chief Hayes called for backup and the FBI dispatched a team to Allendale.
The arrival of the federal agents was a stark reminder of the gravity of the situation.
The FBI's involvement brought hope and trepidation.
The FBI represented a beacon of hope, but also a reminder of the darkness that had descended upon the town.
The FBI's presence was a double-edged sword, a symbol of both hope and fear.
The arrival of the FBI did not go unnoticed.
The quiet streets of Allendale were overrun with satellite trucks and reporters.
The Allendale disappearances were now splashed across television screens and newspaper headlines nationwide.
The media attention was both a blessing and a curse.
The media frenzy brought unwanted attention, intruding upon the grief of the victims' families.
The constant presence of cameras amplified their pain, turning their tragedy into a public spectacle.
The Allendale vanishings became a national obsession. True crime podcasts and amateur sleuths flooded online forums with theories. Criminal profilers painted a chilling portrait of a predator hiding in plain sight. Psychics offered vague pronouncements, fueling the public's fascination. The Allendale vanishings captivated the nation, a reminder that evil could lurk in unexpected places. The fear that gripped Allendale had now spread far beyond their borders. Weeks turned into months, and the investigation dragged on. The FBI made little progress in identifying the driver of the dark blue semi. Allendale settled into uneasy resignation, the initial shock replaced by uncertainty and loss. Then the dark blue semi vanished. It was last seen on a security camera heading north on the interstate. The sighting sent a ripple of apprehension through the town. Was this a sign the nightmare was over, or just a temporary reprieve? The questions lingered, a haunting reminder of the mystery gripping their town. The black semi-truck, like a phantom, was gone. The driver, the one who haunted the thoughts of Allendale's residents, disappeared into the vast network of American highways. Life in Allendale attempted to return to a semblance of normalcy, but the fear, the uncertainty, lingered like a persistent fog. The investigation, despite the efforts of local police and the FBI, remained open, a constant reminder of the unsolved mystery. Marie Singleton, James Jimmy Ray, Bethany Harris, their faces frozen in time on missing person posters, stared out from the windows of local businesses, their stories untold, their fates unknown. The questions that had haunted Allendale from the very beginning continued to echo unanswered in the minds of its residents. Who was behind the wheel of that truck? What had happened to those who had vanished? Was it the work of a drifter passing through, preying on a small town's vulnerability? Or did the answer lie closer to home, hidden within the shadows of their own community?
The lack of answers was a wound that refused to heal, a constant source of pain and frustration. The townspeople of Allendale, once bound by a shared sense of security and trust, were left grappling with the unsettling reality that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones who remain unseen, their motives as elusive as the morning mist.
Despite the passage of time, the mystery of the Allendale vanishings refused to fade. Theories like embers in the ashes of fear continued to smoulder. Some believed the driver was a long-haul trucker, a predator on the open road. Others whispered about a local connection, a resident with a dark secret. Someone who knew the town, knew its routines, knew how to disappear. The fascination with the case remained. Amateur detectives continued to dissect every detail. Each new theory offered a glimmer of hope, but the answers remained elusive. The Allendale vanishings, once a national headline, faded from the public consciousness. But in Allendale, the memory of that summer lingered, an indelible mark etched into the very soul of the town. The town now bore the invisible scars of its ordeal. The streets seemed quieter now, the air thick with a palpable sense of loss and unease.
The trust, the innocence, had been shattered, replaced by a wary vigilance. The Allendale vanishings had been a harsh lesson, a stark reminder that darkness could lurk anywhere.
It was a truth they would carry with them long after the rest of the world had moved on.
In the quiet town of Madison, Alabama, nestled close to the Tennessee border, crime seemed almost foreign. But in late 2019, a mystery unfolded that is yet to be solved. A case that has haunted this town and left investigators more perplexed than they ever anticipated. It started with a phone call. Police received a frantic report from a local resident claiming they'd found the body of a man, badly injured, and left in a small park off of Highway 72. The man was identified as Alex Mathers, a 28-year-old local who had no known enemies, no recent altercations, and no record that would explain how he ended up murdered in one of Madison's safest neighborhoods. But as the investigation progressed, the bizarre twists in Alex's case multiplied. Authorities identified no fewer than 15 persons of interest over the course of the first few weeks. This is where things took a strange turn, one that no one could have predicted. The night Alex disappeared, he'd left a party at a co-worker's house around midnight. His girlfriend, Emily Dunn, told police that Alex had seemed a little off that night, distracted, almost like he was expecting something. He was checking his phone constantly, Emily told reporters. It was strange. He wouldn't tell me who he was texting. Surveillance footage from traffic cameras showed Alex's car leaving the neighborhood, but after that, the trail went cold. The first strange clue was a series of text messages on Alex's phone, sent to a number that led to a burner phone purchased 3 weeks prior. The texts were cryptic, full of what police described as coded language and references to a meeting point. Police brought in his closest friends, each one with alibis that checked out, but then they discovered something chilling. Alex's co-workers, friends, and even his neighbors began to reveal a web of conflicts that seemed to surround Alex. His co-worker, Tim Barnes, was one of the first to be interrogated. Tim mentioned that Alex had been acting paranoid, saying he felt he was being watched and hinting at trouble with old friends. But when Tim was asked who those friends were, he claimed ignorance. Then Emily Dunn, his girlfriend, mentioned that she'd noticed several unfamiliar people lurking near their apartment in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. She told police, "I'd see people parked in different cars, sometimes watching our building. When I'd approach, they'd drive off." Police tracked down several of these vehicles, but they were all rentals, paid for in cash under different names. It was as if someone was covering every trace of their tracks. Local authorities soon expanded their investigation, interviewing anyone remotely connected to Alex. His boss at a local IT firm, Clara White, mentioned a heated argument she'd had with him just days before he disappeared. But Clara wouldn't elaborate on what the argument was about, only that it was personal. When pressed, she said, it's irrelevant to his disappearance. But for investigators, every detail mattered. One by one, more suspects and persons of interest began to surface. Neighbors reported seeing strangers around Alex's building on more than one occasion, and a bartender at a local pub said he'd overheard Alex arguing with someone on the phone just days before he vanished. The bartender said he kept saying something like, "You don't own me. I don't owe you anything." In a strange twist, the investigation revealed that Alex had been receiving monthly payments from an untraceable source. When police attempted to look further, the digital trail ended abruptly, and authorities speculated that Alex may have been involved in something clandestine. But here's where things get even stranger. 3 weeks after his body was found, 2 men, both of whom had attended the same party as Alex that night, also went missing. Their disappearances were eerily similar. No signs of struggle, no indication of where they went. One of the men's families reported that they too had mentioned feeling watched before they vanished. The rumors spread through Madison like wildfire. Some claimed Alex had stumbled upon something he wasn't supposed to see. Others suggested a larger conspiracy involving people in high places. Social media was abuzz with theories, each one darker than the last. "The whole thing feels off," one commenter wrote on Facebook. "How can someone disappear in Madison without anyone knowing what happened?" Detective Robert Lane, the lead investigator on the case, has publicly stated that Alex's murder has become one of the most baffling cases he's ever worked on. "We're following every lead, but every time we think we're close, it slips away. There's something more to this, something we haven't uncovered yet," he told reporters. Meanwhile, the community is left to grapple with the unanswered questions. Why did Alex have so many unexplained connections, so many people with questionable motives around him? Was he involved in something hidden from those closest to him? And the most haunting question, could those responsible still be watching, waiting? Do you believe Alex's mysterious activities were tied to his death, or could this have been a random act of violence? With so many suspects and persons of interest, do you think it's possible one person orchestrated everything, or were multiple people involved?